Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So throughout this current TCG format, post Age of Overlord, I have been testing a couple of different decks and strategies, and I already showcased you the Unchained Labyrinth list. That's one of the decks that I have been piloting throughout this format and I have been liking when it comes to like my good results against like the competitive format and the couple of decks that have been shaped up like being more prevalent or not, like not just in my local area but like on DB format, as well as like just in the competitive level as a whole. Now I'm going to showcase you the second deck that I've been piloting, or I've been testing rather. uh, a couple of people have been requesting for this list, so I think I shouldn't hold it on for much longer. Uh, I did make a sample deck profile, like just showcasing you like stuff that you can do with this deck. I highly do encourage you to check out that video. I will probably post it in the description because uh, I've seen people that are watching my Dueling Book Adventure videos and they keep asking for the Tistina list, and the list is not a secret. Like, it's on my channel. You can, if you try to look up my channel, just scroll and find and like go back like a like 1 or 2 weeks, you'll probably find it. However, I did want to make an updated deck profile because I did make a little bit of changes since I've been testing it, and my perspective on Testina as a whole actually have been bolstered a little bit after I've been testing with it. I think the deck actually does have a coherent strategy, uh, at least the way I'm playing it. There is a solid win condition. There is something you can do with this deck, uh, and like it's not that bad against the current decks of the actual format. I think like if somebody knows how to pilot this deck well, it can even contend at a YCS or a regional like level event. Uh, but yeah, I'm just gonna go through the list. I will go and give coherent explanations because despite my already given disclaimer, I know people who are watching this video are not going to be familiar with most of these cards. So I'm going to do a brief overview of like the ones that I'm playing, the things that they can do, and like stuff that just mesh the deck well together. All right, without further ado, let's begin. We have 3 Sentinel of the Tistina, 1 Return of the Tistina, 3 Fallen of the Tistina, 3 Demigod of the Tistina, 1 Crystal God, and 1 Hound of the Tistina. That's it for the Tistina monsters. I think there are 12 in total. The supplementary engine that we're playing alongside the Tistina cards are the Punks. So we have 3 Ogre Dance, 2 Zeamin, 1 Foxy Tune, 1 Deer Note, 1 Shirokusai. Another pair of monsters that I'm playing alongside the Punks are 1 Tracker, 1 Wheeler. The last honorary psychic, at least at level 3, at least as level 3 psychic rather, would be Ghost Ogre. And our last actual psychic, or our last actual monster in the deck, 3 Kashdira Fenrir. Spells, we got 3 Emergency Teleport, 3 Breath of the Tistina, 2 Divine Domain of the Batistina. This actually has Tistina in the name, just letting note of that. People have asked me that in the past. 2 Play of the Tistina, 1 Triple Tactic Talents, double Triple Tactic Thrust, 1 Discordance of the Tistina, 1 Full Armored XYZ. Extra XYC Armor Torpedo, XYC Armor Fortress, Full Armor Dark Knight Lancer, Tistina, the divinity that defies darkness. Actual boss monster. Zeus, Typhon, P.U.N.K Rising Carp, P.U.N.K Jam Dragon Drive, P.U.N.K Amazing Dragon, or Yuki-Yoe, the P.U.N.K Amazing Dragon. For the non-P.U.N.Ks, Tenji Draco Berserker, Baron the Floor, Psychic and Punisher. And then we have IP and SP. If you count the extra deck is 14 cards. I am missing one. The one I'm missing is Black Luster Soldier, the Soldier of Chaos. I don't own one at the moment. I will get that one real very soon. But at least that's one of the cards that I'm playing in this deck. Another card that I have been switching back and forth in this deck is Scareclaw Tryhard, and I will explain that in a moment. Okay, so that's the deck profile. Now I guess we'll go into explanations. There's a lot to explain. So some people are probably wondering, what is Tistina's actual win condition, and like why do we have so many unorthodox cards like that work with the theme? Well, the way Konami constructed the archetype, there's a lot of different variants on stuff that they want you to do with it. But I will give you a brief overview of like the deck's actual win condition, and then how the other cards serve their purpose to work alongside them. So your main win condition of the deck is getting these two monsters on the board, which is the Demigod and the Crystal God. Essentially, what these two good cards do is the Crystal God can set all of your opponent's monsters, and that resolution of it doing that, it can send every face-up card your opponent controls to the graveyard. The Demigod gains that same effect as a quick effect during your opponent's turn if you control the Crystal God. The Demigod can also like special summon itself as an extender, but basically your win condition is getting these two cards on the board. Now, why are the P.U.N.K cards in here, and where do these cards come in? The reason and the purpose for these cards right here is for the XYZ full armor package, because one of the cards that you will be using alongside the Tistinas is the full armored XYZ. So essentially what full armor XYZ does is essentially it's a trap that allows you to XYZ summon on your opponent's turn, as long as you actually control an XYZ monster. So basically part of your end board is going to be both these Tistinas and the full armor Lancer. This is as a material, and this will be in the graveyard. So essentially your interruptions of choice are going to be the Demigod on your opponent's turn to set all your opponent's cards. And then afterwards, you're going to activate the full armor XYZ to XYZ these two away into the Tistina, the actual Tistina God. And the Tistina God activates its effect when it's special summon, meaning that it's just going to send everything your opponent has set directly to the graveyard. This synergizes with the Armor XYZ trap, because essentially what's going to happen is you're going to set your opponent's cards, and then afterwards you're getting rid of all the cards you set. So essentially it's an indirect board removal or a board wipe, but with a combination of two cards in tandem. And then right afterwards, you can banish the full armor XYZ, target the armor torpedo, equip it to the Tistina, and then make it so the full armor Lancer triggers, and then attach another monster in case your opponent keeps playing. And not only that, but this is providing extra protection to the Tistina monster, and adding to that, the full armor XYZ is giving the Tistina extra attack from this full armor torpedo. So then it becomes a 4500 attack monster that cannot be targeted. And if it gets blown up, you can blow up the torpedo instead. And that is an effect gained from the trap card. And then like on the next turn, you can just detach since you have the Crystal Goddess material, and this essentially becomes a 6500 monster. So that's pretty much like part of the win condition of the deck outright. But is that the only reason the punk cards are in here? No. So the other reason the punk cards are in here as well is because they provide you with other layers of interruption outside of just the Tistina monsters. Adding to that, it also synergizes well with the Tistina cards themselves because with Sentinel being a level 3 monster that is also a searcher and an extender, you can have access to both the full armor package and the Tistina package both in one, and the punk monsters help you get that way. uh let's talk about the punk ratios. um the ratios I'm running in the DB build are a little bit different from this one. In that build, I'm not running 3 Ogre Dance, and I'm only running 1 of the Xiamen. And instead, what I'm doing is I'm playing Madam Spider, uh, as well as the Wagon, the Punk Wagon, and both the Jam Session as well as the Dangerous Kabu. So I don't own those cards at the moment. Um, and this is another version of the deck with the punk monsters. Essentially, you want to play at least 9 punk monsters in your deck because that way you get to see like your punk cards more efficiently. And another really good thing about the punk monsters are not only are is it a really strong 1 card combo that gets you to everything, but there are a lot of ways to extend and push through boards with them. And if you read the Tistina cards or just learn about the Tistina strategy, essentially Konami designed this deck to not go first. They designed the Tistina cards to actually function more optimally when you're going second. However, if you're using your punk cards, essentially you might end up in like a way to just make a plethora of interruptions as well with your Tistina cards as a whole. So I feel like as of right now, this is the best way to play Tistina at the moment. I think the punk cards just generate a lot of value. It synergizes well with your actual win condition of the deck. It gives you a lot of like plays whenever you're going first or second. And like the most important part is that it is very consistent. So essentially what you end up doing is like if you open like a few of the punk cards, you try to resolve all your punk plays, and then right afterwards you try to resolve your Tistina plays, and then afterwards you're going to resolve like the XYZ armor cards. There isn't a specific sequence in how you do this combo. It doesn't really affect the end board. The most important part is the cards that you are sequencing with and the cards that you're getting into rotation with these cards as well. Um, Now let's talk about the other miscellaneous cards. Uh, like the Wheeler and the Tracker are basically here because they're level 3 extenders. You can also summon these with Teleport. That's why you're playing both. You're playing one of each because that way, if you end up drawing, like you avoid redundancy. That way you can just play with any copies that you have, as long as you have like any copy of them available. Fenrir is just a really, really good card. I think it's really, really solid. It helps make Baron very quickly with your level 3 monsters. is just another solid interruption as a whole. It's just a monster that also likes is good for just making boards. So I really highly recommend Fenrir in this deck. You don't have to play Thrust. For the longest time, I was just playing Talents and I wasn't playing Thrust. However, just having Thrust gave you the option of like getting to set your traps in the turn is not a bad option at all. And the other thing that's really good about Thrust is that it's good when you're siding. Like post side deck, this card becomes a lot more useful because there are a lot of cards that you can just side in go in second that you can just play along this card. You don't have to play this. Like if you look at this deck right now, the only actual target for this are the traps and talents. So you can easily just cut this entirely and just play 3 talents, and you should be perfectly fine. So if we go for the Yestro deck, basically part of your end board will just end on Jam Dragon Drive alongside the Shirakusai, unless you want to go for the full Tistina route. Then in that case, you just use whatever level 3 monster you bring back with Deer Note as part of your extender for your Armor XYZ cards, and then just fodder away the Jam Dragon Drive into linking into IP. Uh, IP into SP does not come up a lot. However, it is part of an end board that you can make with this deck that just gives you even more levels of interruption. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for like the actual Punk Tistina deck profile. If you want a more in-depth like analysis or a combo guide with this deck, feel free to like bring it up in the comments. Like I said, this isn't like the most optimal build. The most optimal build would be the one that just has like all the different punk cards. So like if you have access to Madam Spider, Wagon, Jam Dragon session, the Jam session, and the Dangerous Gabu, all of those 4 cards should be in this deck. If you cannot afford Thrust, you can easily just play with talents. IPSP does not come up a lot. However, a really good replacement that you can play for them would be the Scareclaw Tryhard, because that is a monster you can summon that can just stop your opponent if your opponent just tries to stop you in your place in your tracks with this deck. Because this deck can summon a lot of bodies, meaning it could be very easy to just summon that monster. But yeah, that's it for the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was informative and to your liking. And yeah, like feel free to give it a shot. I really do think this is a really solid deck. I think there is still a lot more I could do with it. However, I think for an initial draft, this deck can do very well. Stay tuned. I'll probably do more DB adventures with this deck, and there is one more deck that I'm testing out this format that I do want to showcase you. If you've been seeing my channel by now, you probably already know which one it is. But for those who don't, one good hint is it's another psychic archetype, and it also plays like emergency teleports and stuff. All right. Uh, keep practicing, keep dueling.